So, hello everyone. This is our last meeting in this year's program of internship of Professional Association of Security Sector. I am Dr. Marina Kostić-Šulić. I am in charge of this program of internship. We had 4 meetings by now. This is our 5th meeting. We covered a lot of topics, including the proliferation crisis in the Middle East, different perceptions on the war of Ukraine, of Russia, and of course Russia and NATO. Also about the new national security strategy of the United States, as well as the human security in the context of Russia-Ukrainian war. This time we will give some attention to some very important and maybe new topic for some of you. It is about emerging and disruptive technologies in international relations. This is my pleasure also to announce and to present our research in this field, because we got the EU internship we won actually and get the EU internship program from February to May this year, and we successfully finished that program by making a research paper that is dealing with the emerging and disruptive technologies in the Western Balkan, but from the arms control perspective. So we just wanted to investigate is our emerging and disruptive technologies changing the security and the arms control equation in the Western Balkan. As you may know, we have a sub-regional arms control regime here in the Western Balkans, but we have also the emergence of some new technologies, and our research question was, does that change something in the balance of forces, in the balance of power, and in the arms control regime in the Western Balkans? But before we start presenting this regarding Western Balkans, we need to understand and know what are emerging and disruptive technologies. Miloš and I was a mentor of our speaker today, Miloš Jevtić, who was a great intern, and I'm grateful that he was a part of this EU internship program. And we really tried to make the best of it, but of course, maybe we are also, and I admit that we are somehow maybe new in this field, and this field is not that much explored in the Western Balkan countries. So we needed the help from the real scientists dealing with these issues. And today it is Dr. Niklas Schoernig from Peace Research Institute in Frankfurt. He is an expert in this field, and he will present us something more about this. I also want to use this opportunity to say that we also get the second EU internship with our new intern, Andrei Stefanovic, and we will be dealing with a very, very important topic in this time of great crisis of multilateralism. So we will be dealing with the possibilities of making arms control agreement for Europe. I hope that our conclusions will be important and will contribute to the broader debate in the EU about the new arms control regime that could be established in the Europe and bring more stability to the European countries. So it will be my pleasure also to be a mentor in this program. So for now, I will give the floor to Dr. Niklas Schoernig. He will tell us something more about the concept and the notion of emerging and disruptive technologies, and why is it important at all to study these technologies. Is that because of the impact they have on stability, on peace? What is the essence of this issue, and why is it important for them, or is it important at all for the international relations and peace studies? So next 15 minutes will be given to that topic and to that issue and to Mr. Schoernig, and after that we will have a presentation of our research that was conducted under the EU internship program, and then we will have a discussion about these issues. So prepare yourself to ask questions and give some comments. Please, Dr. Niklas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Marina. And yeah, it's great to be back. I had a presentation 1.5 years ago in this context here at PASS, and happy to show or to be your wingman for your presentation of your work. So now I have changed, I have opened up my screen, so I hope you can see my presentation. I see you nodding, so I go ahead. So I was asked to talk about emerging disruptive technologies. And the first thing is, when you talk about these technologies, they come in different names and forms. So the disruptive in the term emerging technologies actually refers to a concept from economics. So in the mid-90s, someone from Harvard, Clayton Christensen, he came up with the idea of disruptive innovation, but not looking at the military sector, but the economic sphere. And here, he came up with the idea that disruptive innovation is something usually coming from small companies, challenging the big players, those who already have divided the market between them. It's based on a very new innovation, on something which hasn't been there before, and it's actually something which creates new markets and it's smashing old markets. So a small company challenging big players in the field. And one example you can think of would be the PC challenging the market for mainframe computers. In the 50s, 60s, early 70s, there was a market for big computers filling rooms and at universities, but no one saw a market for computers at home. And just a few innovators came up with the idea of producing cheap computers based on actually technology which was out there and smashing this whole mainframe thing. And so here are some elements we should keep in mind. The small company, the small actor gaining access to something which makes him or her able to challenge the big player here. And one thing most people think is that disruption or disruptive technology happens overnight. So you go to sleep and next day everything is different. But there's also something what could be called sneaking disruption. So a technology is out there, it matures, it matures, it matures, and at some point it makes the impact. But it has been there, everyone has looking at it, and the potential had not been clear until that point when the shift comes. So now knowing what disruption is, we have to look at emerging disruptive technology in the military. What is this? NATO's Science and Technology Organization says emerging disruptive technologies are technologies, and I quote, that are expected to have a major or perhaps revolutionary effect on NATO defense, security, or enterprise functions. So it's something which really profoundly changes the way we do defend ourselves. The European Defense Fund regulation says it's technology that brings about radical change, including a paradigm shift in the concept and conduct of defense affairs, such as by replacing existing defense technologies or rendering them obsolete. So this is the idea we had in this market context. You have a technology in the market, and out of a sudden, a new technology comes up and really smashes away what has been there and renders this old technology obsolete. But what are the concrete technologies we are talking about here? And depending on who you ask, you get different answers. Some, like the US Department of Commerce, says there are 14 technologies which have those capabilities. The European Defense Agency names 6. And those technologies are, or depending on who you ask, you get different numbers. And I will go through a list of technologies I personally would see as disruptive and emerging in this context in a minute. But what you have to keep in mind, as I said, with this sneaking disruption, those technologies might be in different states of maturity at this point. And at some points, you even wonder why they are called emerging, because they have been out there for a long time. But it's because people still believe that they will have a more tremendous shift and impact in the future once they mature more. So what are those technologies I'm talking about? You could say, and this is the weakest case, I would argue, that hypersonics can count as emerging disruptive technologies. Hypersonics, hypersonic missiles, which can deliver nuclear weapons, and they have a different flight path from traditional intercontinental ballistic missiles. They are harder to defend against. So they are at least as fast as an ICBM, maybe faster. So in the end, those are missiles which are very hard to defend and might render your defenses obsolete. Another technology is, of course, uncrewed vehicles. We have seen them changing warfare over the course of the 2000s and 2010s, starting with aerial systems like remotely piloted aircraft, the Predator, the Reaper drone you can think of. But what we now see is also that they have systems developed, ground systems on the surface of the ocean or under sea. So you find them everywhere at the moment, and more so. However, most of these systems at the moment are still remotely controlled. Another emerging technology would be the military-rated use of AI, which leads us to, if you combine AI with uncrewed vehicle, you end with lethal autonomous weapon systems. A weapon system where the weapon systems actually decides whom or what to attack and initiates the attack without a human operator giving a green light. So military-related AI can be understood as an emerging disruptive technology, especially if you combine it, for example, with swarming, where when you, and it doesn't have to be in a weapon system. You see AI changing warfare in decision support systems, in enhanced logistics. So AI is understood to be a big game changer now and in the future. So, and this picture should have been combined with the swarming aspect. So just to give you an idea what could be the consequence of AI-based swarming uncrewed vehicles. Another technology which is very unmature at the moment, but gaining lot of attention at the moment is quantum computing. And the most important use cases for the military are decryption, because it is understood that what we have currently as description mechanisms, they're obsolete once you can use quantum computers for decryption. And another thing, you can do bug-proof communication. You can communicate, and once someone intercepts your communication, you will know. You will definitely know, because the quantum states of your communication changes. So you can change channels, etc. So this will be a totally different way of communication once you have working quantum computers. Other technologies, let me just go through briefly, which can be understood to be disruptive, could be cyber. Some people say, nah, it has become normal by now, but imagine a very focused cyber attack against strategic nuclear forces of a superpower. This would be a tremendous and dramatic game changer. You can also talk about human enhancement. The idea that you either put some exoskeleton to a human, like in the Aliens movie, who is still old enough to remember that, but also you can enhance humans with implants, with drugs, and even with biological changes to the human, making some kind of a super soldier. And I think most of you are familiar with the Captain America theme, so something like that could be in the cards for the next years. Additive manufacturing is just might be understood as a disruptive technology because it might be a technology undermining our existing arms control systems. If you at the moment, if you need some spare parts for weapons or for, let's say, something where you want to build a nuclear weapon, these fall under export restrictions. You cannot buy them on the market, but it might be possible to produce them domestically by additive manufacturing. Synthetic biology, I'm not an expert here, so I won't go into this, but changing DNA for military purposes is another thing where many people are giving lots of thoughts to. And nanotechnology, another technology which is not yet matured, but which might be a game changer, starting from new, way more effective explosives to nano robots controlling areas, etc. So here, these are more the technologies of the day after tomorrow, but still can be understood as important, and we have to look at them here. Finally, railguns and lasers for defense against drones, etc. And of course, everything related to space. I will stop here going into exact technologies to to go into the question, why are they problematic? And I chose two perspectives to look at it. The first is the perspective of a great power. So why would a great power fear emerging technologies, and why would a great power see them as problematic? As most of you know, current military is at the moment is very capital intensive. Every jet fighter generation gets way more expensive than the generation before that. There were jokes in the 2000s that by, I think, 2050, the American Air Force could only afford one jet fighter because if the prices progressed as they were. So traditional military is very capital intensive, and it's giving diminishing returns, where a new tank is not changing warfare tremendously. It's very hard to come up to, or you have to invest a lot to keep your power. So what you do fear is you fear misinvestments. How do you know where to invest? You fear losing power vis-a-vis your competitor, and you fear of being completely helpless. Why? Because emerging disruptive technologies from the perspective of a great power, they might enable what is called leapfrogging. So some smaller player gains disproportionately power by investing in emerging technologies. So if you have an emerging technology which at a certain point is really disruptive, as described before, your current technology path here will be just smashed by the new emerging technology. And if a state has not invested in current technology, but decides not to buy a current generation jet fighter, but invests in a certain emerging technology, this might render all your investments useless, as we have debated before. So the question for the great power is, which technology should this country focus on? Should it invest in all potential technologies out there? We have seen the list is long. It could be even longer, as I said, depending on whom you ask. So how do you get an understanding of which technology will be the one which is disruptive, which is the one which you should have if you don't want your investment to be smashed away? So these are very hard choices. It's very difficult to keep track here. But there's another dimension to it, and it's if you look at it from an arms control perspective. If you remember the aims of arms control, it's not that you have to disarm. Arms control has different aims than disarmament. Arms control first has the aim of stability. You want stability. You have arms control to get states in a stable position when no one expects other one to attack. So how do you do that from an arms control perspective? By creating transparency, by making the others see that you're not a threat, and by deceleration of warfare. If you, for example, look at certain arms control treaties and instruments, they have certain zones near the border where you're not allowed to deploy troops to, because what the idea is, if you need time to move your troops from where they're stationed to the border, this gives the other side time to react, to prepare, and this makes your attack less likely to succeed. So by buying time, by deceleration, you will find more time to go for diplomatic solutions, and you will have better time to prepare and to render a surprise attack useless. So these are the major thoughts of arms control. But if you look at the technologies I just described, they are going in the opposite direction. If you look, for example, at hypersonics, autonomous weapons, or AI-based military system, what they do is they speed up warfare. They reduce reaction times. They need you to go to a higher level of alertness in order to avoid being surprised. So this speeding up is totally contrary to what arms control would suggest as the solution to get an unstable situation to a stable one. But the second idea is they create intransparencies. If you have an AI-based military system, if you put an AI into an unmanned system, you do not know what this system is capable anymore. Usually, or in the old days of the Cold War, people were looking at the characteristics of planes, of guns, etc., and said, okay, this plane can fly so fast, it can carry so much weapons, and this gun can shoot so far. But with the enhancement of AI, you're not sure anymore. What is this system capable of? So ideas like having a stable balance of power are way harder to find, because you have it's way harder to characterize the weapon system and to get an understanding of how much capability it means vis-a-vis your own systems. Same holds for cyber. And of course, intransparencies, nanotech is just a very good example, because you cannot see it. It's hard to detect. It's so obvious that someone who manages to create nano-based weapon systems might be impossible to control or verify the military of this person. So having gone through all that, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and I'm really, really interested in seeing your own research here. I'll stop it, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Niklas, very much for explaining us the essence of the EDTs and the problems that are that is actually posed for stability and from the different perspectives. So we don't have usually chance to hear much about this. I hope that your presentation is very helpful to our students. So not to waste time, I will give now the floor or the microphone to our second speaker, that is Miloš Jevtić, who will present the research that we conducted in the framework of the EU internship program. Miloš, please.
Thank you, Marina, very much. Just give me a second to share my screen. So since I'm using my colleague's laptop, could you please tell me, do you hear me correctly? Excellent. Okay.
Yes, yes, continue.
Okay. Just give me a second to share my presentation. Yeah, I'll try not to repeat myself after an amazing presentation by our colleague Niklas. So you probably know that Marina and I worked for, if I'm not mistaken, 6 months or so, but we had a communication that prolonged that period. And during the period of our internship, we conducted, in our opinion, a very attractive, very important research considering emerging disruptive technologies in the Western Balkans. and we wanted to examine the connection between the emerging and disruptive technologies and how and possible ways of their affection to the ongoing arms control regimes in the region. Before we start, so yeah, okay, you're seeing my presentation perfectly. Okay, so yeah, as always, we divided our research into several big parts that followed our internship program. First things first, we examined the most important facts and the current situation regarding the sub-regional arms control regime in the Western Balkans. After that, we did some research and tried to give a definition of the notion of the EDTs, or emerging disruptive technologies. Then we tried to connect in different ways, by a systematic approach between EDTs and armed control regimes. And in the end, of course, we tried to put everything into one perspective, considering our methodology of our research paper, researching Western Balkan sub-regional armed control regime and EDTs. So I'm not going to go into historical details. I'm not going to bother with these kind of facts, but I'm just going to mention, in our opinion, the most important facts that in a very good way describe the current situation regarding the Western Balkan area and, of course, sub-regional arms control regime. As you probably know, the famous Florence Agreement from 1996 is now considered as probably the most effective arms control agreement throughout history, and of course it set a certain level of, sorry, not a level, it set a certain balance of power among the signing parties. But let's be honest, of course, it was not, and it is not, the most important factor. It's one of the factors that establish stability, security, and trust in the region. Other facts that demanded our attention, especially when it comes to new challenges for armed control regimes in perspective of the EDTs, of course, related to the ongoing conflicts across the globe, and of course, the power shifts that are connected with it, definitely. Next fact that we closely paid attention to, and we will discuss it in detail soon, related to the increased military spendings among the Western Balkan countries, and of course, let's say the outer fact that affected the previous ones regards to technology improvements, and of course their military application, because we know that since the invention of the Gatling gun, almost every new technology, as soon as it becomes significant, as our colleague Niklas said, it very soon has some kind of a military application. And of course, all these facts, when you combine them, of course, when you have a systematic approach and when you analyze them, you can, even at the very moment, at the very beginning, you can assume some challenges for the ongoing armed control regimes in terms of adapting the ongoing armed control regimes, or even, making the new ones. So the next part of our research was pretty much challenging, to be honest, because while we were walking through the literature, especially literature from, let's say, Yugoslav area authors, we discovered that not so many authors were let's not say interested in this topic, but there were not so many significant scientific papers that could be used in order to define the notion of the EDTs. Even though it was a challenge, Marina and I did our best, of course, to collect data from foreign resources, from respected authors, and as Niklas said, and I don't want to repeat myself, if you look at the notion itself, you can notice two main adjectives, of course, emerging and disruptive. So here I'm just going to shortly walk you through our main conclusions regarding the notion and the notion that we used in our research paper. Emerging, if you look at the meaning of the adjective in English language, it connects with something completely new, something young, a breakthrough. Even though it doesn't have to limit to a breakthrough, it can also, when it comes to technology, it can also mean that something older or something old is now combined or implemented in a new way. And this is why it's maybe creating a new application, new state, new activity, new technology. Disruptive, as Niklas already explained very well, to have potential to disrupt, to break, let's say, a previous or ongoing flow of events, to implement a confusion, disorder, and especially interesting for our topic, to create a disbalance. So, considering the aforementioned conclusions, we managed to combine a definition that we, of course, adapted to our research and to our research paper. So we said, for the purpose of our research, of course, we have to emphasize that DDTs include completely new technologies or significantly improved old ones, or innovatively converged or old technologies. But the most important thing, no matter the previous state, is their potential to disrupt a range or as well as current balance of forces. So this is how we managed to observe the EDTs, and this is how we use this notion throughout our research and our research paper. For the next part, as we defined the notion, then we moved to analyzing how the EDTs, considering their nature, how could they affect the balance of forces. And probably, let's say, the easiest way to understand, as Niklas already mentioned, is to allow certain actors, usually weaker ones, to contest, to challenge the stronger ones. But during our research, we managed to, let's say, set several ways on how DDTs could affect balance of forces. So the first, and let's say the most obvious one, would be by accumulating significant military power to a certain party, meaning that, let's say, state A, let's say, because of their smart invention in drone technology or cyber or tools or cyber warfare, they now become overpowered, meaning significantly stronger than, let's say, country B. The next way of their affection would be a significant upgrade of some treaty-limited elements. Treaty-limited elements, if you analyze the current and the former arms control regimes, regards to, let's say, certain arms technologies, such as, for example, combat tanks, combat aircrafts, heavy artillery weapons, stuff like that, and their numerical limitations, because these systems are easily countable. They're easy to count. Therefore, they're named treaty limited elements, because meaning their number is limited. The next way of their affection would be through a verification method, very important, let's say, instrument of our control of arms control regime, meaning a method by which parties of a arms control regime can simply verify, can check, the intentions, the numerical situation, the balance of power between the signing parties. For example, let's say a Florence Agreement is carried out through numerical limitations and, of course, verifications on site, which is very logical if you are, let's say, counting or checking the number of battle tanks. But if you are trying to do so, let's say, in the area of cyber warfare, which relates, to basically to lines of code, then that kind of limitation, verification, or even the entire agreement would be obsolete, wouldn't be practical at all. These were in our opinion, the main ways on how EDTs could affect balance of power. And the next part of our research looked into relations between the EDTs and armed control regimes, meaning how EDTs represent, let's say, a challenge for the current armed control regimes. The question, of course, emerged: should we include the EDTs into the existing armed control regimes? I believe that we all at the very moment can answer positively to this question, simply because, as colleague Niklas already explained well, they really have a very serious potential to disrupt even can have a global impact, meaning, let's say, nuclear strategic weapon and other very dangerous systems. So, because of their young and let's say revolutionary nature, or so different nature, these represent, let's say, more the current arms control regimes, and this is why authors, especially from abroad, they started asking questions: how should we implement the EDTs into the ongoing armed control regimes? There are several approaches to that problematic. First one is numerical, as we already mentioned regarding, let's say, the battle tanks, which can, for example, be appropriate if we want, let's say, to include drones, with a small reference that maybe nowadays drones do not consider as a, let's say, completely young or emerging technology, but simply because you can count drones, even if they're smaller. Even if we are talking about mini or micro drones, you can simply count them. And this is why, let's say, numerical limitation or verification on site could be appropriate in this matter. The next approach regards to their functions. For example, as Niklas already mentioned, the autonomous weapon systems. If we, let's say, limit, or if we completely exclude some kind of functions of the EDTs, then we are, let's say, killing their destructive potential. For example, not all autonomous systems should have a so-called kill function. If we disable their kill function, then we can have some different kind of benefits from these technologies, or they would probably they wouldn't probably have as potential as they do have. The next one, and throughout our research, it pointed out as probably the best approach when it comes to challenges the EDTs and the arms control regimes, is behavior-based regime, meaning that, of course, if a technology, first things first, we have to be honest. Technology itself isn't dangerous. The fact that makes a technology dangerous is its application. So this is why a behavior-based approach would be probably the best. For example, in terms of cyber warfare, parties could, let's say, refrain from using tools of cyber warfare on civilian critical infrastructure. So here, by this approach, we are limiting, or we are disabling one kind of behavior, meaning that we can exploit benefits or advantages of a technology, but in certain areas, we are
little problems with internet connection, I think. Okay.
Yes, yes.
We will just wait Miloš to enter again. He was at the faculty and he already said
my
that
internet connection probably snapped. Can you hear me and see me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Please continue. Are you there?
Yeah, I am online. Okay. My apologies. Internet connection here is pretty low, so I'm gonna speed it up just in case it happens again, so that we can finish our presentation. So, without going into any more further details, throughout our research, we define these approaches and these kind of challenges as, let's arms control regimes. The next part of our research, the Western Balkans sub-regional arms control regime, and of course the EDPs. As you were able to listen about types of EDTs in Niklas' presentation. Of course, since we were researching and analyzing the region of the Western Balkans, we limited to certain EDTs that are taking roots as we speak in our region, or are, let's say, realistically to be expected in the future. For example, we didn't include nanotechnology or autonomous weapon systems because at the very moment these are clearly out of reach of the Western Balkan parties. The fact that let's say bothered us, and that is definitely let's say having a negative impact on stability, on transparency, and mutual trust of the signing parties of the agreement is, as I already mentioned, increased military spending, especially in the time span between 2017 and 2021. And two actors point out these are the Republic of Serbia and the Republic of Croatia. One of the facts that is additionally worrying beside the military spending. Of course, decreased transparency, it has let's say security benefits for a country, but of course it definitely decreases trust between the neighboring countries especially. The next fact that is making the region, I don't want to say unstable, but let's say open to along with, of course, decreased trust and cooperation, and outer factor considering disturbance in international relations and shifts of power that we are witnessing right now. So these few facts they emerged when we analyzed the current situation of the Western Balkan regions and how the situation affects the ongoing sub-regional arms control regime.
Miloš, sorry, because you were interrupted because of the low internet connection. Please, could you repeat just which technologies we analyzed in the research paper, just in short?
No problem. It's the next slide. We have to point out that we analyzed publicly available data regarding Serbia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and of course Montenegro. We limited our research to drones, AI implications, small satellites, and cyber warfare tools. So these four technologies were, let's say, the focus of our research.
Do you want to share a presentation about it, or maybe it will just lower even more the internet connection? What do you think? Would you like to share a presentation? Would you like to share a presentation, because we cannot see the presentation now?
Just give me a second.
Just to see the last slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it okay now? Okay, I can see myself clearly. Okay, it's supposed to be.
I still do not see, now I see the presentation. Okay, please continue.
Okay, thank you so much. So yeah, we limited ourselves to these 4 technologies simply because, as I already said, hypersonic missiles, autonomous weapon systems, nanotech, simply out of reach in our region, and therefore we didn't want to spend our energy or time regarding these technologies. The thing that we noticed at the very beginning, even though we worked only with publicly available data, is decreased transparency. We asked ourselves, why is that the case? We concluded, of course, that, as Niklas said, because these technologies have a disruptive potential, meaning weaker actors can now compete or even challenge much stronger ones, especially, let's say, in cyber warfare. Countries simply don't want to reveal those tools, meaning they are preserving them for themselves, of course, in order to achieve their certain goals. And as we already said, decreased transparency definitely negatively affects trust and security and stability between the parties. As for the technologies, and I will finish with this small conclusion, these technologies came to our region by several ways. The most obvious one related to drones, where countries such as Serbia, that is leading the way in drone technology and development, procured these technologies or these systems from foreign partners, such as in case of the Republic of Serbia, China, or now even a more debatable Turkey, but we will see what will happen in the future. And the probably even more important thing, considering the foreign procurements, is technology transfer, meaning that the partners from abroad, let's say, conveyed their know-how to domestic manufacturers, therefore allowing these technologies to take roots in the region. For example, now Serbia has a domestic armed drones production and upgrade. Yeah, I'm not going to bother you anymore because we are out of time, as I can see, and my connection is not as stable as I would like to. But should you have any questions, I'm open to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miloš, very much. I already have one, because we had a question about that. How do you know that the militaries from the Western Balkan countries do not possess nanotechnology? But you will answer that. Just think about that. And now I will just like just in order not to forget about that, to tell you something more about the e-learning course, which should be the first point of research, let's say, when you start to dealing with the arms control and non-proliferation, disarmament issues, because there you have several e-learning units, one of which is about the emerging and disruptive technologies, and Niklas was one of the authors of this e-learning unit. So maybe, Niklas, just in short, you would like to present the e-learning unit and something about the e-learning course of the European Union. Just unmute yourself. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will just share my screen again to give you just a very brief overview. As Marina just said, this course here has by now 20 learning units. We have just added 5 in the last year, one on gender, disarmament law, etc., one specifically on cyber. And as you correctly said, there is also one on emerging technologies. It was authored by a colleague of mine, Frank Sauer, and myself. Frank is from Bundeswehr University in Munich. And it covers everything from remotely controlled systems to autonomous systems, hypersonics, also nano-human enhancement, something on non-lethal weapons, emerging non-lethal stuff. And I have to admit that we are in the process of updating it. So it might make sense to look at it now, but it also makes sense to look at it again in, let's say, 9 months or so, because then you will have more updated material, more updated literature, etc. So give us some time here. But I think it's a good start to get some basic ideas which have not changed since we started that. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to show it.
Yes, of course, of course. Thank you very much for presenting that. So I already asked the question, put the question for Miloš, but I will give the floor to all of you. So here with us today are not only our current generation, the third generation of interns of the Professional Association Security Sector, but also some of the professors and speakers that were also present on our previous events, and also our alumni generation from the first and the second generation of interns. So the floor is yours now, if anybody wants to ask some question. Okay, wait just a moment, because Pavle wrote a question. You can, okay, raise the hand or just signal me that you have a question. Just let me see the Pavle had a question, since I'm okay. You can now read this. For Mr. Niklas, so although the US is the most powerful country in terms of military budget, do you think it will maintain a leading position in terms of modern technologies such as artificial intelligence, cyberspace? Who are the new challengers and what are their indicators? So as I understood, are the US going to maintain or keep, if they are the leading nation now in the emerging and disruptive technologies, and who are their challengers? And for Miloš, question from Miloš, what is the situation in our region? Okay, what do the countries of Western Balkan spend the most in terms of, and some modern, we already answered, actually, it was about the drones, but Miloš, please also connect it to my question about the nanotechnology, because yes, how do you know that militaries do not possess some kind of technologies? That is a big question. How can researchers know what the military possess or is developing? That is a serious question, and it is you know, it is actually hard to know, but let's say let's see what Miloš will answer. Okay, so this is Pavle question, and do you want to answer now or to have another question? Maybe to answer now, and then we will have, okay, Niklas, please.
Yeah, thank you. That's really a good question, and it's hard to answer, because it depends on what you look at, who are the challenges, etc. Again, I will share my screen for a second, because for another presentation, I found those numbers here. It's spending for research and development in general, and a comparison between 1960 and 2018. And if you look at 1960, US defense funded spending for R&D was 36%. So an additional 9% was on non-defense, but federal spending. Then you have US business funded and other US. So at more than 2/3 of all the military spending was done by the US, and only 31% in the rest of the world. Today, things have changed tremendously. If you look at 2018, here you see that a little bit more than a quarter is funded by the US, and the rest of the world is spending 72% on new technologies. So it's way hard. It has become way harder for the US to keep the technological edge here. And for the US, it has been okay for a very long time to just have a technological edge, but they were happy if other countries had also high technologies in consumer goods, etc. But very recently, we see that there might be a change of mind in the US, that they do not want to share even second generation or older technology anymore. And they have, there's this chain of mind that competitors, especially like China in the realm of AI, but also maybe Russia or others, might be problematic here. So this keeping the edge idea has been guiding US policy for the last 50 or 60 years, but it's getting more difficult, and we will see more friction here in the future. I will stop here and hand over to Miloš.
Thank you so much. First things first, as for Marina's question regarding the nanotech, yeah, I want to emphasize that we analyzed only publicly available data, but the conclusion was no signs of any nanotech, any nanotech presence was observed during our research. But of course, that isn't the reason to. That's not the only reason we assume that there are no developing nanotech applications in the region. Besides the fact that we observed only publicly available data, we have to consider that nanotech, and this is something something that comes as a common knowledge, nanotech is very costly. Not only its research, but also its application, simply because it's very new and it's nano. So it requires huge resources regarding funds, regarding experts, regarding facilities, and resources are so high that on one side it will probably be a top secret, and on the other side are so huge that probably some leak would have happened in the region. So considering all the facts, this is why we concluded that, let's say, in the case of nanotech, it still doesn't have its root in the Western Balkan region. As for Pavle's question regarding the spendings in the Western Balkan region, well, we can conclude, and of course, I once again underline the publicly available statements of the policymakers and military officials. We can conclude that the spendings follow, let's say, the most important conflicts that are unfortunately ongoing throughout the world. For example, in the Western Balkans, we can see that the countries are, let's say, increasing their spending in drone technology, not only armed drones, reconnaissance drones, but also systems that are countering drones, such as the systems for electronic warfare, tactical, operational, strategic, stuff like that, and are, investing in different types of helicopters. Let's say, technologies and systems that are not as expensive, for example, as a hypersonic missile, but can offer significant, let's say, operational capacities to a country regarding the Western Balkan environment. Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Miloš. Now, Milan will ask the question.
Thank you. So I have a question for Niklas. It's regarding hypersonic weapons. Now, I'm very interested in this topic, and I'm working on, well, 2 papers basically. But essentially, what I was wondering is they're talking about it being disruptive, which is something that I agree with. But did you consider their stabilizatory potential, so to say? Because yeah, they are disruptive, they are fast, they fly really low, so they're harder to see. But then again, satellites can detect their launches because you need plenty of fire or plenty of energy to launch at hypersonic speeds. So satellites that can detect ICBMs can easily be adapted to detect them. And there's another thing now, they're basically impenetrable. They're not impenetrable, they're penetrating defenses easily. They're more like uninterceptable, almost uninterceptable. So in a sense, they're stabilizing the, so to say, strategic nuclear balance, because these weapons are avoiding issues that can come with anti-ballistic missiles. Now, anti-ballistic missiles might from the other side to arm itself more, if we assume the parity between US and Russia, US gains anti-ballistic missiles, Russian missiles are not successful enough, so they either have to increase quantity to match the doctrinal needs, or they can increase the quality of missiles by making hypersonic missiles that can be intercepted. So, you know, there are some stabilizatory effects there. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, you're right that one could say that any idea of defense against strategic missiles is a problematic thought. I mean, that's why we didn't have missile defense for a long time. It was not allowed to have large missile defense, etc. But of course, even if we think about proliferation of hypersonic missiles, if we think that actors which are not part of a strategic stability equation will get that technology, this will be very problematic. And I tend to believe that the American anti-missile technology is not aimed against strategic partners or former strategic partners, however you want to call it at this particular point in time, but against smaller states getting this technology. So I'm more afraid of hypersonic proliferation rather than Russia having those this technology for the reasons you just described. Is this an answer to your question, or do you want to follow on?
Pretty much, yeah, because I agree that well, both the GMD and the Standard Missile 3 are there to block potential North Korean or Iranian assault. They're not made for Russia. But since Russia is worried, it created some unintended consequences. So, yeah, I agree with this. And do you have any ideas on how such non-proliferation could be stopped? Because, like, literally the paper that I'm working on is about that. Like, MTCR to some degree stops it, to a lesser degree, perhaps, missile treaty control regime, and some, like, biological chemical weapons regimes to another extent also remove some dangers, but
I'm a big fan of the MTCR, and I think at the moment the MTCR is troubled because of the question whether it should include drones or not. But the whole missile part of the MTCR is unquestioned by all major members, as far as I understand it. So the MTCR could be the first regime to look at. You're right.
So these are the things in progress. So nobody have completed exact answers. So we can just discuss about it and maybe conclude about some best solution. But these things are in progress and are thing for debate of the arms control community. So these are all good questions, and I'm happy that we participate in this debate, and maybe we could give some constructive answers. Yes, Niklas already answered that actually, and Milan, the emerging and disruptive technologies. If you look from different perspectives, in sometimes maybe they are stabilizing. They can have stabilizing effect, maybe. But yes, the question of proliferation is one of the main issues. And as Miloš explained in some of his points, you know, that behavioral aspect of arms control is very much important. So how you use the new technologies, it's also with the hypersonic missiles and ballistic missiles and the drones. So in which way are you going to use this new technology is very you know, important. So if some irresponsible state gets the new technology, it is always the question how it is going to use that new technology. It is the same question with all weapons of mass destruction, with the nuclear weapons. You know, it's not easy to answer, but there is an agreement that proliferation of technologies that can be dangerous should be controlled. So yes, we are speaking because of that about the possibilities of controlling emerging and disruptive technologies. So any other question? Maybe Stefana, you would like to add a word on strategic stability and emerging and disruptive technologies?
Well, I was thinking, but eventually I gave up. What I wanted to say is that strategic stability and deterrence is about perspective always. Let's say if you are the United States confident that you won't attack, of course, your ballistic missile defense are stabilizing for you, since they are decreasing chance that someone else will attack you. If you are Russian, for example, confident that you won't attack, but that worried that you could be attacked by the United States, from your perspective, hypersonic are actually stabilizing factor. So we are observers, we cannot be confident about what anyone thinks. So the most of these technologies, I would say, except cyber, have ambiguous impact on strategic stability. So it depends on perspectives, of course, yeah.
Okay, so I will just read another question from the chat. Okay, so it can also be connected to one also of my questions. How do we find out about the technologies when we conduct the research? I don't know how you do your research papers. So we are now speaking about the methodology and the sources of data and information. So also Mr. Miloš Jevtić asked how much is the transparency important for the research organizations and the NGOs who are dealing with this issue, just to have a chance to give their opinion on this issue. So if we don't have any data, of course, we cannot deal with the issue. So would you like to stress the importance or not of transparency? So from the perspective of the researchers, of course, the transparency is important, but from the perspective of the military and government, probably the transparency is some of the dangerous things. So what do you think about the transparency at all in the research of EDTs? For Mr. Niklas, yes, for Dr.
Okay.
Niklas.
It's very hard to come by actually with hard data and knowledge. I know that a German institute is producing a summary report about military-related technological developments for our Ministry of Defense, but it's classified. So as a research agency, we don't have access to this. I mean, we talk to engineers, we go to fairs, we get an idea here, but my personal belief is that what we see is only the tip of the iceberg, and that in the labs you have way more and way more sophisticated stuff at the moment. So we also operate only with open source material, and internationally it's the same problem. So what we do at our institute, we came to the conclusion to include more people studying natural sciences, like chemists, biology, people doing biology, physicists, to debate with them whether what is debated out there by NGOs and critics, whether this is realistic or not. So how realistic is it that we will see a nano application in the military within the next 5 years or so? This is nothing I can answer. I need someone who studied physics to answer that. So in all, this is a very interdisciplinary approach here and topic. So yeah, it's a little bit like walking in the dark and seeing what you can find. But if you look carefully, as you did, for example, you will see traces. So, and hints and follow-ups. Yeah, it's not given to you on a silver plate.
Yes, that's what research is all about. So do the research. Yes. Okay. Okay. I hope Mr. Jevtić, that the answer was correct one, and that you are okay with that. So anybody else? So also Niklas, do you know about any other research on the regional arms control architecture and EDTs, or EDTs in some regional contexts? I'm not sure. I didn't find any research about the regional context and the relations regarding the EDTs. Only on some global level.
Yeah, same here. So I think
Yes.
you're covering uncharted ground here, and that's great. And I know that in the past there had been some debate in the CFE treaty whether this would include drones, for example, or whether it just was including manned systems. There was some debate in the 90s or 2000s, but that's all I know. So I'm really looking forward to your research here. It's groundbreaking.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Okay, one last question or comment, because we are now out of time. It's 1:40. So yes, everything that you need about the literature and about the maybe some beginnings of research of EDTs in general, you can also find in this e-learning unit. You can also just Google search some of the Niklas papers who was dealing with EDTs, and you can find out more about that. I hope that some of you will start seriously and academically deal with this issue. I know already about Miloš, of course, and about Milan. I'm also looking forward to see Milan's final work of this internship. It is about the hypersonic weapon systems. Also, you have some of the material also on the website of the EU Non-Proliferation and Disarmament Consortium. It is in different forms. It's non-proliferation papers. It is also some other papers from other institutes that are part of the consortium's network of think tanks. So I think this is a good basis for you to start thinking and dealing about these issues. So I'm very grateful to Niklas that he helped us here with this issue. Also, I'm thankful to Miloš that presented in a very good and perfect way our research. I hope it will be published soon in some of the academic journals, so you could read it and cite it. Yes, why not? We invite you all to follow our work, and this is, as I said, the last meeting that we had in the framework of our internship of the third generation. Now I expect your final works and papers that will be published in January. So yes, we continue our cooperation, and I hope that, Niklas, I will see you also in the future in some other framework and activities. So thank you to all of you for the participation, and see you on some next occasion. And this video will be published on our website and YouTube. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.